right. I have some people that I want to bring up. If they emerge from the darkness here. Yes, it's Shakur. So, it's working?
Yes.
So this is your first movie, right?
Yeah, it's the first feature.
First feature. Now, this is the second time I've seen this, and I've got some simple questions. Like, how did this originate? Like, this came out of nowhere. Like, I never heard of you guys, never heard of this movie, and I saw it and I said, what did I just see, and who are these people? So, give us some background on how this came about.
Well, Cliff and I in the movie are actually pretty close to Cliff and I in real life. Like, we actually were friends in high school, and really embarrassing movies with their shirts off when we were 16. And so we've been doing short films for about 10 years, and then decided we got extended into the world of features. And we had some really, really big scripts, and realized that wasn't doable. So we wrote something a little smaller, and this is what we did, all we could shoot. It's been a crazy roller coaster ride since then.
So my other big question is how? How did you do this? What was your plan? Like, how did you bring this to life?
Well, I mean, I guess the core concept when we were sort of banging our heads against the wall, thinking what could we do was we just sort of threw out in a brainstorming session, vampire documentary. Hey, wait a second. First it sounded like Derek was like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, and then we're like, oh, wait a second, that could be really cool. And one of the things that we thought could be really cool about it is if you took something really fantastical like vampires, but showed it in sort of this realistic documentary style. We thought that could be really interesting. And the added bonus of that is that it was something that we could shoot with a very small crew. So that automatically reduced costs, but it also made it possible, even though we had a very, very low budget, to actually be able to fly everyone to Europe, shoot in these amazing locations. And basically, a lot of the movies shot with about 7 people, but then when we had stunts, we could have 15 or 16 people, and shoot those out. And then basically, as we shot all the complicated stuff first, so that we were spending all the money, and by the time we'd run out of money, we're just running around Barcelona with a camera and a boom, so it wasn't a big deal.
So, like, you had this script, and like who did you team up with on the production side to in the initial phase?
We're Canadians, so we actually have this amazing resource called Telephone Canada. They allow you to, we applied for the super low budget independent filmmakers assistance fund, which isn't a lot of money, and then we finance the rest of it through friends and family, like probably half the stories of first filmmakers out there. And through some very, very smart spending by our producer, we thought it was possible to go shoot on location in Europe, which saves money in some areas, but costs a lot in others. And so you just had to wing it and adapt, and we've had to run away from cops and change cities and all sorts of things. I don't think there's anyone here who can't hear that story.
So a lot of this looks very complicated. So, like, talk about logistics and technical hurdles that you had to jump through to be able to do some of these crazier sequences in this movie. Because I'm guessing you didn't have a lot of money. You don't have to say what this budget was. Nobody really.
No, we definitely didn't have a lot of money. Derek and I had to come home and do our day jobs as soon as we were done shooting the film. I think logistically the thing is that the good thing and the bad thing is that it was all, there's usually only 1 or 2 cameras that you were able to use, so because it's strapped to the character a lot of the time, we could turn the single shots into actually 25 shots that look like one. So for instance, in that SWAT team sequence, that's actually 25 shots that are all stitched together in the wipes and stuff. So we could really break it apart, and essentially our assistant editor was basically grabbing the card out of the camera as soon as we were shooting something, loading it in. We were making sure that the cut was working as we were going. And in that way we could sort of isolate the 1 or 2 major beats in that section and then string them all together.
So you guys seem like real gearheads.
Well, I mean, the other thing we had is we had this amazing crew. Like, our crew was very small, but it was awesome. Like, our director of photography usually makes these beautiful, gorgeous movies, and this one we're like, dude, you gotta make it look horrible. If Derek and I are holding the camera, you know, it can't look lit. You know, it looks too nice. We just not believable. But the very, you know, like stuff like shooting that exterior when we're running up the side of the hotel. That's something. I mean, he had to light that by himself with 4 tiny lights. You know, normally you'd have a whole truck and about 20 people working for you. And the other story we like to tell is like, you know, at one point, the guy who was editing our movie was also the boom operator and the props master and pulling the cables on some of the stunts. So, you know, everyone was doing double or triple duty to make it happen.
So one thing I like about this movie, among many things, is that you push this concept really, really, really far. Like, you've got this kind of modular structure, days and nights, that allow you to like not get like hooked in to like this traditional narrative arc, and it allows you to like take this idea really, really far, and you never really know where it's going, and it's really surprising all the time. Can you talk about your planning, how you organize, you know, what was your thinking behind organizing the structure of the film and putting it together?
I guess structurally, we really just wanted to follow the story of, like, the idea behind the film was to take something as commonplace in pop culture as vampires, and take the glitz and the glam and the I'm so beautiful forever and nothing ever goes wrong with me, and get back to sort of the roots of why it's a curse, why it's this huge fear epidemic, all the terrible things that go along with that. So we wanted to make it about a character going through a terrible, terrible journey, and that informed every decision along the way in terms of like what would be the most natural thing for 2 guys who, if this actually happened to them, what would they be exploring, what would be happening. It gets a little tricky once Derek kills Cliff, but at that point it becomes sort of like a quest movie, and we shift again to the 3rd act. So.
Okay, I want to open this up to questions from the audience. Do we have any questions out there? I see a hand in the far back there.
Yeah, can you guys talk about your choices and what vampire myths you decided to do and which ones you didn't want to do? Like, for example, you know, the shower scene, him in the mirror, you know, you wanted to leave that. Can you talk about your choices there?
Sure. So one of the guiding principles in this movie was let's try and make sort of shine the light of reality on everything we can. Like, the more we can make it feel real, the less you feel like you're looking at actors on a screen in a movie, and the more you feel like you're watching real people in real situations. So in terms of vampires, what we wanted to do is we really wanted to try and ground it in biology, like a sense of biology and disease. So, and the idea was that your body starts to crave blood and needs blood, and therefore your physiology changes in a way that turns you from a human being into the ultimate predator. So all that stuff like super strength, speed, the eyeballs like adapting so that the iris can close all the way down and all the way out so that you could have night vision, all that stuff was sort of designed around a biological model of vampirism. And even stuff like the sunlight, the idea there was like it's an extreme allergic reaction or photosensitivity. It's not like you're bursting into flame, like it's some sort of magical thing. So that was kind of the principle that we were holding up there.
Any other questions? I'll take you right there.
How did you guys do the like onboard camera of him jumping, like looking down onto the streets? Is that really blew me away?
I think the one you're probably talking about is the big police chase.
Yeah.
So that's actually a 110-foot crane in the middle of nowhere in Italy. And they just stuck it between the 2 buildings. It actually gets kind of complicated because we had to wipe the base of the crane out, which is a moving shot. And some of it, the 5D, which we shot on, has a really nasty rolling shutter. So it can be a huge, huge, terrible, terrible task to get to your VFX house to wipe out things while the whole frame is like jittering left to right. So yeah, that one was a stunt guy in 2 jumps, right? One taking off in the building, and then we stitched that together with the second part, which is going to the side, because doing both at once would like end up dead, just flat stunt guy.
Okay, you're right here.
This does not look like the first film at all.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. What is your previous filmmaking experience?
So directorially, we did, well, as you can see, when we were 16 years old, we made some amazing films.
Robert Rodriguez, actually.
Yeah, that was awesome. So we made 3 movies based on Desperado when we were 16, and that's one of them. And we got to meet Robert Rodriguez yesterday, which was like a huge thrill for us. We freaked the fuck out, basically. That was amazing. But, sorry, and then after high school, after we graduated from university, we were like, let's give this a shot. So we basically started volunteering on film sets in Vancouver, and then we did 4 short films between 2001 and 2010, basically. So, on some of them, like the last short film we did before this, it was very stunts heavy. It was sort of this action movie. We had way more crew on that short film because it was just a 2-day shoot. And the amazing thing about working in Vancouver is you have all these amazing professional crews, but they're very, very generous also with their time. So they'll come out for a short film if they believe in the project and help you out. So we sort of got a chance to know a lot of the stunt guys that worked on this, and got a chance to sort of work in that on a small scale, just on a 3-day shoot, and that kind of gave us, a very nice grounding for, then taking the skills we've learned on those short films and applying them here.
Okay, Scott Weinberg.
Yes, I have 2 quick questions. As a guy who's going to write about this movie, is it okay if I use the word vampire in my review, or is that a spoiler?
We've asked a lot of audience members,
Okay.
generally speaking, like, would you want to know it's a vampire film before going into it? And I see people shaking their heads at me already, which is great. That's kind of the mentality.
I'm a good writer, I can keep it sly. I can keep it sly.
Yeah, we've been using it
secondly,
as a creature.
I'm sure you've heard it before, and I mean it in a very complimentary way, but have you had many people compare the film favorably to Chronicle?
Yeah, Chronicles Vampires comes up a lot.
Yeah.
It was an amazing boon for us for that film to come out when it did. We were in production and had written and actually cut a version prior to having it actually coming to theaters, which actually cost us one of our favorite scenes. We lost a scene with a baseball because of those guys, because it was almost the exact same scene. We're like, well, they must be very smart because they wrote the same scene.
Good job, you guys did a great job.
Thanks.
Okay, same row, right there.
So when you first escape from Interpol and you're going through the city, I'm very curious if y'all mapped out an actual location throughout that city, or did y'all piece that together all throughout the day?
Well, basically what we did is, ahead of time, we knew we had the jump. We knew that was going to be sort of the start of it. And we knew we wanted to, because the iconic place in that town is the square. So we knew that's where it was going to start. A few days ahead of time, we went with the stunt guys and basically just did a walkthrough of the town to sort of look for the coolest pieces of geography, like that little tunnel, and then there's another, there's the cave at the end, and essentially tried to, say, oh, it'd be really cool if you ran through the tunnel here, and you could jump off of this little staircase here, and all of that stuff. Like, we knew we could have the one big stunt of him jumping out the window, but everything else had to be stuff that the stuntman could practically do, like, jumping over this little 8-foot ledge and stuff.
Actually, interestingly, that was one of the few sequences that we tried to do as a oneer. So our stunt guy actually did the entire run. Ended up being too long, so we cut out a small section, which hopefully you don't notice. And then after that, we learned not to do those as one shot. There's literally no reason to do them in one shot when you can fake it in all these quick wipes. Like whenever this action requires somebody to turn really quickly, you can basically hide anything you want in that cut. So we quickly learned not to try to do that anymore. It takes way too much time.
We actually originally cut that scene out of the movie. We're like, he'll just jump out, the camera will glitch, and then we were talking to some people, our producer later, saying, what are you talking about? That scene's going to be loved. And we're like, we don't know. And actually, we understand now that, we were wrong.
I saw some more hands. I'll take you, right here.
First, I want to say, everything about this film is brilliant. I mean, just from the fact of not letting people know it was a vampire film, because I'm not a huge vampire fan, but had I known that before, I might not have really been as interested. But it was, every single aspect of it was awesome. So I just want to say that. 2 things though, was everything shot on the 5D? And the second part was, did you have to speed up any, like, shoot at different frame rates to make it look like it was going faster?
Just going back to your original comment, first of all, thanks. And also, like, Cliff and I aren't generally, like, we weren't huge vampire buffs, to be honest. Like, other than, playing a lot of video games, D&D when I was a kid, like, it's not, we didn't love especially where vampires were in movies at the time. So what we wanted to do was kind of make the anti-vampire film, if at all possible, and go with the biology route. But to answer your question, yeah, we shot a few shots on the GoPro for like the skydiving, nothing that really made it to like any major sequences. And then we did a bit of frame ramping, but not a ton.
The joke in the editing room was speed it up and shake it if it's not working.
All right, I see you right there.
If you can tell us, what's the U.S. distribution looks like?
Wow, funny you should ask that. CBS Films picked up the movie, and so we're ecstatic about that, and we are sure that they're going to distribute it in every single movie that they can possibly do.
I've seen some more hands. How about you, right there?
So, how did you decide between the two of you which one was going to become the vampire and which one was going to get written out 2/3 of the way through?
Well, we tried to keep the story as based on reality as possible. It just made things a lot easier in terms of like using old footage and using our backgrounds. So originally, I think the very early part scripts involved me doing it because Cliff was kind of the filmmaker, and then we quickly realized we needed a filmmaker cohort who eventually was going to die horribly, and that just made logical sense to have Cliff play that part. So it kind of, yeah.
Any other questions?
Derek was the star in all of our short films, sorry. So we knew that he was going to be the lead, and then the flyer with me was like, oh, we're going to base it in reality, and what if I'm actually myself? Like, then we should use our own friends. Like, that means you should be in the movies. Like, wait, I haven't been in a movie since I was 18. But, anyways, hopefully, I was playing myself, so it wasn't too much of a stretch, but that's essentially how it came out. Like, we knew Derek was going to be doing the heavy lifting in the acting department.
Any other questions? I think I've seen some more hands. How about you?
I was wondering if the beginning of the movie was like a deliberate spoof on like a tech commercial or a Kickstarter video?
The sort of idea that we thought originally was just, I don't know if they have them here in the United States, it's weird, this may be a Canadian thing, but we have like a travel network basically where there are sort of travel shows where people go to different countries, and some of them are actually like, one or, it's sort of the same model, there's like two people and they're going around, so we wanted it to feel like that, and we thought, the other thing we thought is like, if we can start out, because the Cliff character is a filmmaker, we can sort of have it start off in this pretty and edited, composed, like this is a professional done thing. But then as the movie gets crazier and crazier, they become less and less conscious of the like editing and polish and music. And stylistically, as the movie goes into chaos, so does the editing style.
Any other questions out there?
Did you ever think about releasing this as a video blog instead of a movie?
That is a very, very good question. The project started with that in mind. We were originally thinking there was a version of this that could be cut up into very sort of teaser, cliffhanger style video blogs that we could cross-promote with the band that we created. Like Unalaska's actually a real band now, and they're putting together an amazing album, and just sort of hit the potential viral campaign from multiple different directions. And then from there, generate interest in getting the feature out there. It ended up working out much to our delight in a different way, but that you nailed it. That's exactly what we originally intended. Hence the sort of MTV style travel stuff at the beginning. And like, there's a whole episode about us skydiving that didn't make it into the feature because it's not really relevant, but it's cool. Like, Cliff is actually terrified of heights, and we actually threw him out of a plane for it. It was an awesome day.
And then we actually put it out of the movie.
So we have time for one more question. One more question out there? All right, you, let's make it good. Come on.
Oh, snap. Well, I was at another production. First off, like everybody said, man, it's insanely impressive for a first feature. But I was just wondering, in terms of like you guys approaching this as your first feature, how long it took from pre-production to production to post. Like, you guys said you already had like another cut beforehand. So how long did it take you to get everything out?
I mean, all in basically 3 years from when we started.
For
from the day Cliff was like, let's make a vampire doc, and I said that was the stupidest idea I've ever heard, to today has been 3 and a tiny bit of years.
That's it. Let's give it up for Nick.
Thank you everyone for coming. It's amazing.